Welcome to the Health, Habits, and Epic Living podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sherry Price. The goal of this podcast is to educate and enable empowered women to take the next step towards achieving their health, wellness, and lifestyle goals. Let's get started. Hello, my beautiful and epic friend. So you know I'm all about empowering women with the appropriate habits to have great epic health. And it's not just to have great epic health to walk around and say, yeah, I have great health. No, it's so you can live an epic life, however you define that. And you know, this year I am big on change and embracing change. And also it's my year of travel. I've been traveling a lot. I actually just got back from another awesome vacation with my family. It was so much fun. Spent some time with my sister and her family, and we just played a lot. We danced a lot with the kids. They're just so adorable. And it's just such a beautiful way to be with people and your family. And so we had so much fun celebrating and enjoying their company. So that's one way I love to live epically this year, is really a lot about travel. And I'm also learning so much as I've developed a new program called Mastering Menopause, and we just finished up there. I want to share with you that there was a naturopathic doctor that joined us and really educated the women about appropriate levels of hormones, how to get them, whether you want to be on bioidentical hormones or not, how to look at really managing that hormonal shift as we go from perimenopause into menopause, and then the symptoms that come along with that. And it's so much more than just the hot flashes and the vaginal dryness and the night sweats that we hear about so much with women. And I love her presentation and how she approaches her patients. And she was saying that she even sees people in their 30s going through perimenopause and into menopause because of all the hormone disruptors out there. And we aren't being told the truth about a lot of how to take care of our bodies. She even mentioned light exposure, coming from our screens that we're on all the time and how that is damaging our hormones and our health. And she talked about all the numerous ways and the downstream effects that this inappropriate light is having on our biology and what we can do about it to rectify that, how we could get proper light exposure, because we're seeing even hair loss prior to menopause because of, changes in light, and what we can do about that for proper hair growth, proper hormonal regulation, proper stress management, and as well as thyroid function. So we covered so many laboratory values that women should be making sure that, if you are at these levels, that's what conventional medicine may say is normal. But what we're going for is optimal or epic levels, right? So we want to be in that optimal range so we can be functioning optimally. And so it was such a great course, such wonderful feedback. And I believe we'll be doing it again this fall. So if you are interested in learning how to master the menopause transition, and you may be already in menopause. Some of the women were in menopause. They learned so much about how to mitigate some of the symptoms that they were having. And it's just really nice to have somebody there to help educate you in what to do differently so you can feel epic. You can feel better. So if you are interested in mastering menopause, you can go to my website at epicu.com and join the waitlist, and we will notify you when we open that program up again. And like I mentioned, I think I'm going to be launching it in the fall. And the next program I'm actually launching is Tone in 10. That program teaches you about 10 habits that you need to really take care of your health in an optimal fashion, right? I'm all about being epic, being optimal as much as we can. And there's so much within your control that you can do from a habit standpoint. Do you know that over 95% of our health comes from what we do outside of the doctor's office? Right? It's those daily habits. It's those weekly regimens that we do or don't do that contribute to optimal health. So I boiled it down to the 10 most important ones that move the needle on body composition, having a body composition that's right for your body type, making sure we're not high BMI, making sure that we are not insulin resistant and leading to diabetes and inflammation and heart disease and all of this that sets our bodies up as promoting cancer growth. We don't want a body that promotes cancer growth. So I boiled it down to these 10 habits that you practice over 10 weeks. And what I found when you practice those, and when I practice those in my life, you feel fit, fabulous, and on fire for your life. You have energy, you're vibrant, you want to be active. It feels abnormal to be sedentary. It is abnormal as a human. I mean, just look at our evolution. We never sat at a computer or sat in front of a TV screen for hours and hours and hours on end. So with Tone and 10, you will learn exactly what to do in the 10 habits. And I walk you through a tracking sheet and what to measure. And let me just tell you, ladies, the scale is not the most accurate measurement. I give you measurements that actually move the needle on saying if you are getting healthier or not. And the scale is not the best measure. It really isn't. And how many of you have tried to lose weight or get fit or get tone and the scale doesn't budge or sometimes goes in the opposite direction? And I will tell you that sometimes when it goes in the opposite direction, that means you are making progress because you might be building muscle. And we can test for that. We can look for that. If you're building muscle, muscle is going to weigh more than fat. And that's going to cause your fat to get burned off your body. So I really love helping women understand exactly what it is for permanent weight loss and then what doesn't help. And that's what I'm going to go into today on the podcast is really 5 lies that we've been told that leads to permanent weight loss. I know so many women have tried to lose weight. They got results. And then guess what? Months later or weeks later, the weight comes back on. And that feels demoralizing. That feels like, why did I put in all that effort? Why do I keep doing this yo-yoing? And I know that gets really tiring emotionally. It gets really challenging mentally, right? You feel like, oh, can I do this again? And so I really want to go through 5 things we've learned about that really doesn't work. And you could see this on a global scale. And so as I dive into these, I'll be pointing out like, hey, we tried this as a country and look, it's backfired. And so I want you to really clean up your thinking if you are following or believing these 5 lies are going to work for weight loss. In fact, I do consults and I had a person sign up and said, I want one of your metabolic assessment consults. And so she signed up. We went through her latest labs. We went through what medications she was on and why she still has belly fat. I'm like, has your doctor told you about this? Do you know that this, like she had inflammatory markers going on in her body and that was going to prevent her from losing weight. And she said she's been trying and then she's on this national program to lose weight and she's not seeing any results. And then she was saying some of the things that this weight loss company was telling her to do, which was part of the 5 lies. And I'm like, wow, that is so inaccurate. We have so much data to say that that's wrong now. And so depending where you get your information, it might not be the most accurate information. So I really want to share with you these 5 lies, because if you are trying to tone up or get fit or get healthy or lose weight or banish belly fat in any of these 5 ways, my guess is it's not working. And if it is working, be careful because it might not be permanent. And I think we want permanent success. So let's dive in to the 5 lies that I consider for permanent weight loss. 5 lies. First is what I hear over and over and over again is I'm just going to follow a calorie-restricted diet. Now, on the surface, for some people, that means I'm just going to eat less, right? I'm just going to devoid. I'm going to do less calories in, and maybe they're even monitoring their calories out. We have seen over and over and over that this can be a short-term win, but a long-term loss. Meaning, yes, you can willpower yourself, you can get on a calorie-restricted diet, but over time, this won't lead and doesn't lead to permanent weight loss. Because when you lose weight, you may be losing water weight and you may be losing muscle. And muscle is not the type of weight we want to lose. We want to lose the dangerous fat, the visceral fat, the belly fat. That's the kind of fat that we want to rid from our bodies because that's the one that sets us up for disease and inflammation. That's the type of fat that makes our joints creaky and ache. That's the type of fat that we get when we go through this hormonal shift as women into menopause, right? Because we know that the body is undergoing hormonal changes, which makes us more susceptible to gaining belly fat. And so if we eat less, a lot of times the belly fat does not go away. The muscle will go away. The water weight will go away. And then we become weaker instead of stronger. We become more frail instead of feeling better. And oftentimes, if we don't eat the right stuff, we become more depressed because we're not making their neurotransmitters. We're not giving our body the adequate amount of macro and micronutrients that it needs to actually function optimally. And so just eating less or just doing a calorie restriction is not the appropriate way to get sustained weight loss and feel optimal and epic, right? Have that energy. Be able to play with the grandkids, be able to walk miles and miles and miles without coming home and feeling like you're famished because your hormones are off. In fact, over time, your body will fight the reduction in calories by increasing those hunger signals to your brain and potentially slowing down your metabolism, right? This is why we feel low energy if we don't eat enough of the right things and get enough quantity that the body requires to make new cells, to make neurotransmitters, to make our happy chemicals like serotonin and dopamine and other neurotransmitters, and then enough sex hormones, right? We need enough testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and DHEA and all the things and cortisol and thyroid. If your body's not getting the nutrients that it needs, it's not going to be able to produce all the things downstream that it needs to be able to function at its best. Now, I want to go through these 5 lies because if we're following them as women, particularly, we're going to get trapped into thinking nothing's going to work. I tried calorie restriction and it didn't work. So now what? My body seems to be stuck or in this weight loss plateau. But that's not true. You can be in a weight loss plateau because you're not doing things the right way. And so it's important that we really know what doesn't work and what does. And that's why I love Tone and 10 so much, is because I'm educating you along the way and empowering you to know exactly how to fuel your body and what works for permanent weight and fat loss. All right. So let's look at number 2. Number 2, we've tried this as a society, is believing that a low-fat diet will work long-term. Okay, so we have demonized fat in this country, right? 40 years ago, the American government told us that it's bad to eat fat, to stay away from cholesterol, to stay away from saturated fats. And that's when we had the advent of all these fast low-fat companies pop up and fat-free companies pop up like Snackwells, right? And you just ate more Snackwell cookies and more Snackwell products. And so these were devoid of fat. And what did they put in? They put in chemicals, food-like substances, right? They weren't actually good for our body. And so these food-like substances, right, kept us craving more. So they put in more sugar, they put in more of these chemicals, which keeps our brain desiring and craving more. So what happened as a society when we did this low-fat movement and changed the types of food that we focused on and said were heart healthy, like cereals? Really? Cereals have so much sugar in them. And then, all the advent of all the new foods that came out because of this. Well, we got sicker. Right? Obesity rates went through the roof. Diabetes increased dramatically to now that it's an epidemic in our country. We got sicker. We got more sick and more diseased. And so During that time, we used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset diabetes. Do you remember that? There used to be juvenile onset diabetes and adult onset diabetes. But then we had to change the name of adult onset diabetes to type 2 because kids now were getting diabetes. Kids were getting type 2 diabetes. And so they weren't adults yet. 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds were getting type 2 diabetes. So we had to change the name from adult onset to type 2. And this is sad. We got sicker as a country when we followed this lie that's going to say it's going to make us healthier, more slim, and it didn't. So please, the low fat phenomenon didn't work. As a society, we saw its destruction, and it's sad. After that, we see that according to the CDC, currently, right now, 41% of women 21 and over are obese. 41%. That number was way lower 40 years ago, way lower. And now we have women, 45% have high blood pressure above 21, 45%. And 1 in 5 women will develop Alzheimer's, and 1 in 9 will develop type 2 diabetes. This is why I care. This is why you care, right? We don't want these chronic diseases that we can prevent with healthy lifestyle habits. Healthy lifestyle habits. And I teach you those 10 ultimate lifestyle habits that make the most difference on your health and longevity in the Tone in 10 program. All right, number 3, it's all about what you eat. Okay, so this is number 3. It's all about finding that right diet. And so I want to say that is a myth. It's not just about finding the right diet, because what do we know about when we put on weight and when we put on belly fat? We know that to get that off is harder. And one way and one thing you must implement to get that off is a stress management practice. Because when the belly fat comes, we get a surge of cortisol. And cortisol is needed by the body to stay alive. So I'm not demonizing cortisol. We need it. Without it, we wouldn't be here. We need it to support our blood pressure, our breathing, to do all the things that it does inside of our body. But nowadays, we have way too much of it. And so if we don't reduce our cortisol, it will be nearly impossible to shed all the belly fat that we want. And I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, when I was working with a one-on-one client, one of the key things that led to her belly fat loss and her fat loss was that we implemented multiple times a day that she would do a stress management practice because her cortisol was off the charts. It was so high that of course it's keeping on all of that weight, because that's what cortisol does. When cortisol is high, it upregulates our glucose, it upregulates our insulin, we become insulin resistant, and then our body can't even respond to the insulin that it makes. That's why it's called insulin resistance. And then we just hang on to fat. So if we want to reverse the trend of obesity, it's not just about what you eat. There must be a way that you reduce stress in your life. And as I talked about in the podcast prior and before, is that when we are over 40 as women, we become less stress resilient, meaning we are more sensitive to the effects of stress in our life. So things that we find stressful, we really need to counter that with a stress management practice. And so I believe that's in week 7 or week 8 of the program, as we go over in the Tone in 10 program, how to minimize cortisol from spiking, what stress management practices to implement into your life so that you can actually be calm, feel amazing, and start shedding the weight that is stubborn and won't move. And oftentimes that's what happens. It's because of the high cortisol, because it's also leading to that insulin resistance, right? And we can look at the lab values and see if you have insulin resistance, right? We have all of that information and that technology available. So it's not a guessing game, which is what I love. I love data because I really want to use that data in a way that's going to serve you and your health. All right, that's number 3. Now moving on to number 4, it is about things you consume, but outside of food. So on step 3, I mentioned it's not just about the food you eat. It also, you have to include a stress management practice or multiple ones. For a lot of women that I work with, they're killing it at their jobs. They're managing the household calendar. They're the CEO of their house. They're doing all the appointment making for everybody in their family. They're cooking, they're shopping, they're cleaning, they're doing all the things, right? And that may keep our stress up. So very successful, but make sure you are implementing things that protect your health, right? And so that's part of it. And then I also say that it's not just about what you eat, but everything you consume can lead to an increase in weight. So what do I mean by this? I mean that there are obesogens in our food. There are obesogens, or these chemicals that actually stimulate insulin resistance and hormonal disruption, which makes it easier for us to gain weight. So that's why they're called obesogens. And they could be in our personal care products, our hair products, the things that we put on our bodies. These obesogens have been found in our foods, in our pesticides, in the herbicides, in our cookware, right? So we have to consider everything that we take in and look for how can we minimize the obesogens that we are exposed to. And here's a stat that I wanted to share with you. If you look at other countries, and let's look at the European Union, they're regulating over 1,300 chemicals that don't go into their personal care products, food, and all the things. They're regulating over 1,300 that they banned from cosmetics, right? Hair straighteners that are toxic to our bodies and cause hormonal disruption, lipsticks, right? Hairsprays, all the things that we put on, perfumes. So they regulate over 1,300. Our government, the FDA, for our personal care products, regulates just 9. Just 9 are banned. Just 9, compared to over 1,300 in the European Union. So if you think about that, right, you're thinking like, wow, we are exposed to so much more chemicals that disrupt our hormones. And when I'm saying disrupt our hormones, I think what a lot of people think is just our sex hormones. No, we're talking about all kinds of hormone disruptors, right? With insulin, with cortisol, with thyroid, all kinds of hormone disruptors. Of course, it is also the estrogen and testosterone and progesterone, because how do we know? We're seeing fertility rates decline. It's harder and harder for people to get pregnant, right? Because we are exposed to these endocrine disruptors, which are also known as obesogens, because they are making us sick and fat. And so it's not just about what you consume from a food perspective. So if you want permanent weight loss, you really have to look at everything you are putting into your body, food and non-food as well. And then number 5, this is my ultimate, this is what I hear so much from people, and it won't lead to sustainable weight loss, is eat less, move more. Eat less, move more. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, but just to highlight why it doesn't work. Some people eat so little and move so much that when I work with them and I tell them the opposite, you need to eat more and move less, that's when the weight comes off. That's when that stubborn belly fat actually moves. And if you think about this, you can overtrain. Just think about what happens hormonally to, say, Olympians or people that are hardcore trainers, right? Women don't get their periods. They lose their periods because they're training so much, and that causes a hormone disruption. Yes, their tone, but that hormone disruption, right? And so when I work with some women, they might be just doing it too much. The body is like Goldilocks. It has this optimal state. Too little and too much, not good. It doesn't feel safe to let go of harmful weight that it's carrying. And so we got to find that right zone. And we have that from the literature. And at least we have the starting point, and then you learn to fine tune it for you. You learn to fine tune it a bit so it really works for your body type. And so just eating less and moving more, again, if you're not moving at all and you start moving, if you've been like highly sedentary and start moving, of course, you're going to start to feel better and you may start to lose some weight. That's great. However, if you do it too much or not the correct way, you might be not getting sustainable results, and you still might want more weight loss. And then if you stop eating less and moving more, right, the weight comes back on. So you want to learn the exact strategy and to keep it and maintain it, right? That's why I'm so passionate about helping you build habits that work forever. I call weight loss a lifestyle because it is. Once you make these small habit changes and make them part of your lifestyle, you will have weight loss and it will be sustainable. And that's the whole goal, right? We want to put in the right effort that's going to give us results for a long time and improve our health along the way. All right, so if you're interested in joining me inside Tone in 10, feel free to go to my website, epicu.com, and click on Tone in 10, and you can sign up there. If you have questions about anything about the program, feel free to email me. You can email me at sherry@epicu.com. I'd be happy to address your question. I will tell you new this time, I will be including some information around intermittent fasting as it pertains to women. I find that women don't fully understand how to utilize intermittent fasting without feeling deprived or doing it wrong where they're not actually optimizing the fat loss that they can get. So I will be including that inside of Tone in 10 this time around as a request from previous participants. And before we go, I just want to let you know that inside of Epic U, the members for July, the topic of July, will be focusing on creating amazing relationships. I know if you've been with your partner a long time or with your kids, and sometimes our relationships can feel a little flat, or that we're at odds with one another, or they just don't feel as amazing as they can be. And so I really want to help you follow these rules and tools that you can use to create amazing relationships where everybody gets what they want. I love living a high-functioning household and empowering the people I live with and supporting them and having them support me. And I feel that's like an amazing, epic way to live. So I want to teach you all about how to create those amazing relationships in your life. If you're interested in joining us, please come on in, join for the month if you want, come check it out. It's so much fun to create the amazing life and an epic one. All right, my friend, until next time, be epic. Thanks for listening to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. If you're ready to take the next step to improve your health, wellness, and lifestyle goals, head over to www.epicu.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Again, that's EPICYOU.com. Please note that the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice.